Good evening. Welcome to the Black Doctoral Network weekly web series, Conversation Starters. I am your moderator, Fese Longe, and I am thrilled that you could join us for another wonderful episode on current topics. So, today we'll be discussing increasing diversity, equity, and inclusion in STEM leadership, a very profound topic. And to help facilitate this discussion, we have two expert scholars that will be joining us to share their insight. The first panelist joining us today will be Dr. Marquita Blades, who is a consultant and creator of powerful teaching strategies at Dr. Blades Consulting, LLC. Her research focuses on instructional leadership, providing teachers with an effective, comprehensive tool for activating curiosity, engaging students, and promoting higher level thinking and doing. I welcome you, Dr. Blades.
Thank you, Fese.
Our second panelist joining us today will be Dr. Yvette Scheiber, who is a CEO and a phenomenologist at Conflict Intel Research Group. Research focuses on the causes of conflict within organization and how these impact performance, decision-making, and interpersonal relationship. I welcome you, Dr. Scheiber.
Thank you.
All right, so this is actually one of my favorite topics when we start talking about STEM. So let's go ahead and jump right into the first question that I have. How would you describe the relationship between diversity, equity, and inclusion and STEM leadership? Start with Dr. Scheiber.
Well, I'm glad you asked me that. That's my passion. It was what my dissertation was about, and it is something that needs to be addressed. We don't have the representation, especially within senior leadership, that we need to have to be able to really address DE&I. It's not as much as nobody wants us there per se, but it still is kind of an environment, especially when we're talking about things like, I hate to say this, but what we call soft and hard STEM careers. Mm-hmm. Soft STEM careers, those that have more women, those that have more people of color, more Black people, and hard STEM careers, tech, computer tech, that's mine, mechanical engineering, things like that. It is still seen kind of as a guy's game and a primarily white or Asian guy's game. And I think one of the things we have to just keep doing is just keep showing up. You know, we need to be there. They need to know we're there. We know how to do these things. I mean, it's it's not rocket science. Well, sometimes maybe, but it's not rocket science. And we need to be shown that we can apply ourselves in these careers and do really well in them, because there are a lot of women who are in these STEM careers who are just getting blocked because it's not believed that we are someplace else, or that we're supposed to be someplace else. And so it's just a matter of continuing to knock on those doors, continuing to show up. I had one in my research, he said, we just need to keep showing up in masses so they know we're here. We don't need to start in elementary school. There are women who are prepared to do those jobs right now.
Thank you, Dr. Scheiber. And Dr. Blades.
Well, I believe the relationship between DEI and STEM leadership is a bit of a broken one. I won't say that it's non-existent, but as Dr. Scheiber alluded, it doesn't exist at the force that we need it to. And the fact that we still celebrate a lot of firsts when it comes to Black people, and especially Black women in STEM, really is very telling to how far we still have to go in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And while a lot of organizations have a DEI director or a chairperson, we really have to look at, though, what are the true efforts behind that the initiatives that they have in place, and are they really speaking to really gaining true diversity, equity, and inclusion, really being the biggest one, because you can put some of us in the room, but if you're not recognizing the true value of the contributions, then it's still not full inclusion. And so that's a relationship that needs to be strengthened. We need more of it across all organizations, and not just some of them. And we need to look at who we're putting in those positions and the amount of power that they are given within those positions.
Thank you, Dr. Blades and Dr. Schreiber, for highlighting those key points for this question. So, just as a reminder to our viewers tuning in, as our guests share their intellectual property, please give them credit for their contributions. So, this brings me to my next question. What are some barriers impacting equitable and diverse recruitment of STEM leaders? Dr. Blades.
I think the main barrier are having value being placed on certain research interests and priorities. So if an issue is not an issue to the majority culture who is working within that environment, then oftentimes it's not seen as an issue at all. And one example that I can give, I was dealing with my lighting today, right? Before we got on, I was talking about how I just couldn't get the lighting right. Or we have instances where AI technology doesn't recognize certain skin tones, or photography apps don't really color correct for certain skin tones, or pick up certain accents and dialects. All of those are diversity, equity, and inclusion issues. And so I think those are barriers when it comes to recruitment of STEM leaders. Well, the barrier is just that we're not focusing on the right individuals who can help us address those types of research interests and concerns. If the people in the room aren't even aware that this is something that they should be thinking about, then they're also not aware that they should be recruiting people who can help address those types of concerns.
I will applaud you on what you just said, because you hit some of the things the people that I was talking to in research mentioned. It is that the subject matters that we're looking at, a lot of them don't think it's worth investing in. So you're not getting the investment dollars. They also aren't understanding that, yes, there are differences, like you were talking about in the lighting. There are differences, and those need to be acknowledged, because we represent a huge group of people who actually pay for a lot of this technology, and they're selling us technology that doesn't work for us, or just works partially for us. And they don't seem to appreciate that yet. It hasn't grown to the top of the list, because a lot of these companies, are driven by profit.
Yes.
But at the same time, we are a major, Black people, Black women are a major provider of this profit.
Right.
So they really need to start saying, what do we need to do to satisfy that community? As opposed to, well, we're just going to put something out there. You're going to buy it, you're going to use it, and you're just going to be happy. And that's why we need more people who look like us to be in those leadership positions that says, no, that's not how it's going to work. You're going to need to provide something that actually works for them, that, like you were talking about the AI, that doesn't work against them, because they are a major part of this overall society. You need to listen. And plus, if they listen, they're going to innovate more. They don't quite, I think, grasp the fact that if they take into consideration the things that we need, that means innovation. Innovation ultimately means more money. So it should be in their best interest.
Absolutely. And it also makes me think about, this may be a bit controversial. I don't know how you all feel about bonnets, but when the bonnet emoji came out last week or the week before, I wondered who asked for that, who wanted that. Why did you think a particular group of people would be interested in that? Just who was doing the thinking? who were they speaking to in providing that option? And that's a clear example of where having the right people in the room could have maybe given us a different option. Not to say that some people don't like the bonnet, but I just thought there were probably some other things that could have been provided in the diversity realm that we could have used a little more than the bonnet.
I agree with you. I think, they kind of think of us as being monolithic. Like
Absolutely.
we're all the same. We're all doing the same thing, which always, that's why they're always surprised. There's so many of us who are PhDs. They're like, what? And I'm like, yes, that's, we do that too. So by pigeonholing us, we only get things that they think they're going to have, but we need more people to say, no, see, that's your one thing. That's
Right.
one way of looking at us. There are so
Right.
many other ways.
No, thank you, Dr. Schreiber and Dr. Blades, especially for mentioning the bonnet conversation. That is a totally different conversation for another time.
Yes.
But thank you for utilizing that example. So the next question that I have for you all is, how has the current socio-political climate influenced diversity in leadership STEM positions? Dr. Schreiber.
Oh my. So diversity, inclusion, equity and inclusion now pretty much has to include everybody. So it has gotten so stretched out and stratified and watered down, may I say, that a lot of the major problems that we still have are being overlooked, talked about, because everybody now is afraid. One, I might end up talking about something that gets me in trouble with some policy, state, otherwise. Or I feel much more comfortable if I don't have to admit that there's only 1.4% of Black women in senior leadership positions. If I don't have to do that, if I say, but look, we have all this other diversity, not that that's not important, because I do think it's important. I think there has to be diversity across many groups, from ages to everything else, to ableness, everything needs to be addressed. But at the same time, it ends up being something I think leaders don't know what they're supposed to talk about. And so they're talking about it and at the same time not talking about it. Does that make sense? It's
That makes a lot of sense. But I think it's rooted in the fact that people are being forced to diversify when they're not really interested in doing it authentically. And so if you tell an organization you have to do this, they're going to do just enough to meet the expectation or to meet the mandate. But this goes back to what I was saying earlier, but they're not going to allow enough space within the position for that person to truly work out what needs to be done to make it a diverse, equitable, and inclusive work environment. So I feel like a lot of times we get, and we're getting it a lot now because of all of the things that have happened during the pandemic. The veil it wasn't really pulled back. It's just that some people started to look in that direction now because we know the veil has always been pulled back. But now that a more global lens has been put on some of our equity issues, especially in this country, then I feel like companies, organizations have responded by adding these positions, but they're essentially rubber stamp positions because they're really not allowing for that true diversity, equity, and inclusion to take place.
And I agree with you. And you said it wonderfully. I agree with you. There are so many ERGs, for instance, and there's so many that nobody knows what they're supposed to do or how much. There's no funding for them, because let's face it, you're only going to really put forth a lot of effort that you're going to put some sort of collateral behind it. And these are easy, and they put them there. And then a lot of times nobody knows what to do with them. And they could say, I have them. And then if you ask them, well, what are they doing? Then nobody knows exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And I think that just puts people in such a precarious position who are really interested in diversity and equity and inclusion. And they want it, but now they're sitting there going, I don't know where this is going to go.
No, thank you. Thank you both, Dr. Schreiber and Dr. Blades, for those key points. Just reaching out to our viewers that are tuning in for this wonderful conversation. Please feel free to like, comment, and share this episode with your friends, families, and colleagues. Leave comments or questions, and our expert scholars will be sure to follow up with you with some wonderful answers. So, the next question that I have for you all is, what type of challenges do African Americans experience while pursuing STEM leadership positions? Dr. Schreiber.
The biggest one is that a lot of times you're the only one still. I mean, this is like 2022, and you're the only one in the room. I mean, I've been the only one in the room for most of my career, but I thought by the time I reached this point, that would be the case.
Mm-hmm.
But it is. And like I said, it's weird because it's going two places at the same time. I could see other places where we occupy a lot of space, but then again, it's called soft. Then when you get over the ones that get the most investment dollars, you're still a lot of time the only one in the space. So you have to get really used to being the sole person and knowing why you happen to be there. And why you want that position, because it's not easy. There's still, it's not like it used to be where you're getting stuff right in your face constantly. But a lot of times you're the only one, you're not being talked to, you're not invited to things, you're not included in things. And so you have to find a way to make yourself very comfortable in a space that is, well, frankly, uncomfortable.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I think one of the main challenges is having the network and having the connections to pull you into certain circles. I would say, even personally, that has been my biggest challenge. And when you're the only one in the room, as I have been, and I'm in education, which is female dominated at the bottom, male dominated at the top. But here in Metro Atlanta, it is Black female dominated. But when I've tried to branch out and do other things in education outside of the K-12 realm, it has been a challenge with not having the right connections. And when you show up in an authentic fashion with the concerns, much like the ones that we're talking about today, again, that's not a priority in a lot of spaces. And so rather than pull you in and have to deal with you bringing that with you, then it's just easier sometimes to keep certain people out of those leadership positions.
Thank you, Dr. Blades and Dr. Schreiber, and just for highlighting some key points with that question. So I thank you. So the next question that I have is, what are some strategies? Because I know we've talked about the challenges and the barriers, but what are some strategies to promote STEM leadership positions in the African American community? Dr. Blades.
Well, we definitely have to create more enrichment programs. We cannot continue to allow or rely on the K through 12 school system, which obviously is my heart. I was a K through 12 teacher for 16 years, but that's how I know. We can't rely on that system to provide the type of exposure that our students need to understand the types of STEM leadership positions that they can go into. We have got to build those communities within ourselves. I used to work an enrichment program for high school students, and the percentage of students of color, but specifically Black students who attended, was shockingly low. And that's something that has to change. So we have to create the networks where our students can see the types of individuals that they could aspire to be. And then we also have to start highlighting STEM career fields, and we need to start talking about the little known fields even more. So I'll give another personal example. My mother had spinal surgery last week, and she had an all Black medical team. I knew that her surgeon, her spinal surgeon, would be a Black male. I met him prior, but her anesthesiologist was a Black female. And then she also had another medical professional that I had never heard of before, and I can't remember the name of it. But the young lady, what she does during spinal surgery is that she puts tiny needles under the patient's scalp and also around their calf area. And she monitors their nerve function during the spinal surgery to alert the surgeon if there are any nerve changes. I had never heard of that before. And I thought, how fascinating is this? And if I had never heard of it, a 22-year STEM educator, then we know our students haven't heard of it. But these are the types of people that our students need to be exposed to. But that's not what gets highlighted in social media. That is not what gets highlighted in general media and television programming. And so I think all of those are avenues that we as the professionals will have to start to utilize so that we can put these images in the front of our students.
This is a really good question, which I really wish I had a really good answer for. Part of the strategy is what we're doing now. There has got to be more conversation around this. Mm-hmm. It's too quiet. It's too much waiting for things to change. They're not going to change at the speed that we need them to. We need to be out there and discussing this the way we are. And there need to be others who are willing to do that. We also need to invest more in our own community. Mm-hmm. We have people who have made quite a bit, and they need to now funnel that back into helping people who are already out there trying to do this work.
Yes.
The other is to remember that DE&I is great, but once you get in the position, it doesn't turn out to be so great. You're 10 years in there or even 5 years in the position, you're now not the DE&I, focus. You're not a new hire. You've now moved into that retention and promotion place, of which there is less attention. Until we get more attention and saying, it's not just about hiring us. It's not just about making us stay at least the first year. It's about what happens when you're a 5, 10, 15-year professional and you still are sitting in the basic same position you were in 5, 10, or 15 years ago. Those things need to be addressed, because if they're not, then we're not going to move. We make up, according to the McKinsey lenient study, we make up basically half of all the new hires, we're proportionately correct. Black people are about half, white people are half. As it keeps going, we lose ground. And that really has got to be addressed and researched to say, why? And then have some very, what I call, extremely uncomfortable conversations as to why we're not making the ground we should be.
Dr. Shiver, I love what you said about investing in the individuals who are already doing the work. And as you were saying that, I could think of about 5 educators who I know right now that have nonprofits that they are essentially bootstrapping, promoting STEM in their communities. But if they had access to funding through other organizations, we could do a lot more. So I like that you mentioned that.
Yeah, that capital is everything. As much as we would hate to say, but this whole country runs on dollar signs. And without that capital, you can't move things, like you're saying. They probably have great ideas, be changing things. They need money.
Yes.
No, I mean, I definitely agree with Dr. Schreiber and Dr. Blades for those specific key strategies on how to promote STEM leadership in the African American community. So thank you for your insights and your feedback. So I want to take this next question to looking at some institutions' perspective, especially with HBCUs. What type of interventions would you propose for HBCUs to implement to encourage students to pursue STEM leadership positions? Dr. Blades.
I loved this question because I have so many ideas. But what I would love to see is a freshman required STEM exploratory course
Hmm.
where they have to first year take this experiential learning STEM course where they essentially explore various disciplines within the STEM fields. And it has to be experiential. It has to be field based. They have to be out with professionals so they can see it in real life. You know, it's one thing to hear engineer. It's something different when you realize that an engineer is also the person who mixes the trap beat and gets it ready to be dropped, right? So when you know that that's an engineer, maybe you realize, oh, I actually was interested in STEM all along. So I would love to see a program like that. So we get the students as soon as they're entering that 4-year university experience, expose them at a high level, and hopefully we don't want to flip anyone. Well, we do. We want to flip everybody into STEM. But the bigger goal, though, is to help students realize that they probably always had an interest in STEM and just didn't know it was that.
I will invest in that. I mean, I love that. That is a grand idea because I think they think it's like STEM is stuffy and it's
Yes,
boring and you don't do anything fun. And it's like, no. Like you said, it's engineering is in music, it's in roller coasters, it's in all these other things that we don't think about.
yes.
But STEM sounds so, stuffy, but it's really not. And I love that idea of getting freshmen to really hands on. I mean, there was one guy I interviewed. He did come for us, but he was awesome because he was at TSU here in Houston and at Texas Southern, and he had done a lot of internships. So he had worked on like systems that even he was talking over my head, and I was like, wow. And he was excited about it. But if you don't have that experience, what you're talking about, that experience, he was excited because he got to do it. He sat amongst people doing it. He saw what happened when he designed these systems. He was working on telephony systems. He realized what happened when he designed them and what would happen when they were implemented. And so he had a stake in it. If we keep making it over here as being some sort of special place that only special people can go, and you have to be this absolutely the smartest person who ever walked out of
Right.
your school, well, it's always gonna, there's lots of people gonna say, well, that's not me. I wasn't that. Not knowing, no, you're what we need. You're exactly what we need.
I've always described myself as an unlikely STEM student. I ended up majoring in science education because I had a Black female biology teacher, and I was only supposed to take one science my freshman year. I had her, and she made me realize that, oh, I actually do have an aptitude for science, and it's not stuffy, it's not nerdy, it's not a white boy's field to go into. It's practical to everyone, but you're right, they have to see it and they have to be in it.
That's right. It's all about touching STEM, I guess we could say, because it isn't stuffy. And yes, I am a nerd, but that's okay. Well, actually, I found out through some tests, I'm a geek. I'm okay with being a geek. There's nothing that's bad about that.
Right.
It can be a lot of fun, but I don't think it's exactly representative to kids, to Black kids. Like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Right.
Well, thank you, Dr. Blades and Dr. Schreiber, for highlighting that. I just want to comment. This is why this is one of my favorite episodes and topics to discuss, because it provides that level of transparency that is needed with these conversations to let individuals know that STEM is for everybody, and removing that negative narrative that has been perpetuated through society. So I appreciate expert scholars like yourself just breaking it down and highlighting it for our viewership so that they understand it better. Well, this concludes the questions that I have for this particular topic, but I still have another question to ask you both. How has your affiliation with the Black Doctoral Network helped to enhance you personally and or professionally? Dr. Schreiber.
I found me, so to speak. I found people who were like me, who didn't think going and getting, this much education was a strange thing. Occasionally people go, why would you want to get a PhD? That's so much work. And I'm like, oh no, but it's so much fun. And so being in this organization, I found other people who think the same way. And that's so encouraging. And being in STEM, and like we talked about before, often be the only one who looked like me in a room. That's not the case here. I'm never the only one who looks like me in this room. And that is so encouraging and so fulfilling, and just keeps me moving forward and keeps me working hard.
Thank you, Dr. Schreiber and Dr. Blades.
Well, for me, being affiliated with the Black Doctoral Network, first of all, it gave me an opportunity to present to my peers. It's been a few years since I presented at the BDN conference, but being from a K through 12 background, a lot of times when we earn our doctoral degrees, it is with the intent to move up in education, not really to go into academia. And so once you earn that doctorate, you can feel as if you're cut off from the rest of the doctoral community. Mm-hmm. So being connected to BDN helps me in that way. It makes me feel scholarly, because up until a month ago, I was not affiliated with a university. I just accepted an adjunct position at my doctoral alma mater. So I'm excited about that and excited to be officially reconnected to academia. But it just keeps you connected to a network of individuals who you can discuss things with that you wouldn't be able to discuss with everyone else. Like Dr. Schreiber said, it also helps me tap into a side of me that most people don't get to see. I don't sit around talking about research with my friends or even with some of my colleagues. And so BDN is an outlet for that.
No, thank you, Dr. Blades, for that, and Dr. Schreiber. Well, I'm sure you both know that it's a very important month and starts the countdown to the 10th annual Black Doctoral Network Conference. So I just wanted to highlight a very key event that will be taking place during this conference, which will be the BDN 10th Anniversary Celebratory Gala. And I just wanted a little bit of insight from Dr. Blades on what you look forward to as being part of this gala.
Well, the first thing I'm looking forward to is dressing up and looking good and just coming out, having a good time and meeting colleagues, making new connections. I have a whole lot of ideas and initiatives that have really just been sitting in my notebook. And I hope to connect with some people that we can start to move some of these things forward. Maybe we have some priorities in common that we can kind of start to put into motion. Also meeting Dr. Taylor in person, meeting you in person. That's the main thing. Since I'm unable to attend the actual conference, I did still want to connect. I think the gala is a great way to do that.
No, thank you, Dr. Blades and Dr. Schreiber, again for taking time to share your insight, your feedback, your knowledge base of surrounding STEM leadership. Again, we want to thank you for your membership as being an important member of the BDN network. And just before we go, I always want the viewers to have an opportunity to connect with you if they have additional questions or comments by leaving a little bit of contact information. So, Dr. Schreiber, how can they get in contact with you?
Well, you can reach me at yvette.schreiber@conflictintel, that's with two L's.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, but unfortunately, right this way, I can't remember what my handle is on it, but I believe it's Yvette Schreiber, PhD, on LinkedIn. And I would love to talk with anybody who's interested in continuing this conversation, because like I said, I think that is the major thing we have to do, is continue these types of conversations.
Thank you. And Dr. Blades.
Yeah, people can reach me. The easiest way is through my website because they can email me from there. They can get to my social media from there, drmarquitablades.com. Yeah, just everything is on my website.
Thank you, Dr. Blades and Dr. Schreiber. Again, I mean, this is just the beginning of many more conversations, and I'm sure that we will all be doing this again. If you've enjoyed Conversation Starters and would like to keep up to date with the latest BDN developments, please be sure to check us out on blackphdnetwork.org. And again, we are having our 10th annual Black Doctoral Network Conference. So to register, go to bdnconference.com, taking place in person in Atlanta from October 27th to the 29th. So please be sure to share this episode with your friends, family, and colleagues and professional networks. Again, I am your moderator, Fesse Ilonge, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for watching.